What's going on, guys? It's Sam. Something has been on my mind lately that I really want to talk about because I want your input and your feedback on this about the new iPad Pro replacing the traditional computer. More so this year than ever before. I've seen other reviewers talking about it, other YouTubers online I've seen it, but also more so than ever, I've seen Apple talking about it, mainly because it has a USB-C port on the bottom, so you can plug in a lot of accessories straight to the iPad that you could never plug in before. But I've been using the iPad Pro line for 3 years, and what I've learned after 3 generations of Apple's iPad Pro line is that this device actually can't replace your computer for a number of reasons, but they sort of all culminate into one big reason. And that's because the iPad Pro runs iOS. It doesn't run a special version of iOS for the tablet. It doesn't run a special version of macOS optimized for a huge tablet with an edge-to-edge screen. It runs iOS on the iPhone, but blown up with some special features like split screen apps. You can drag things around. You've got drag and drop on here. But that's pretty much the extent of everything else. iOS limits the iPad more so than it should. For example, if you have a really expensive camera and you want to import footage, maybe start editing photos or even videos on your iPad, it only lets you import straight through the Photos app, so you have to put it in your personal camera roll, and then you have to import it from another third-party app, even like iMovie, which is technically first-party, or something like Adobe Rush CC, or if Apple would ever introduce Final Cut Pro on here, you would always have to go through one app first and then to another. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but that's just the beginning of limitations with the iPad Pro. If you want to use something like a hard drive, you want to use an external SSD to store your footage because you don't want to spend a ton on the 1 terabyte version of the iPad Pro, you can't do that because iOS doesn't support external hard drives. And that's where I come at a crossroads here, because Apple says it can replace your computer, it can pretty much do everything that your computer does. And I've seen a lot of reviewers, myself in the past included, compare it to a computer. And at this point, the more I've used the iPad Pro line, the more I start to learn how ridiculous that idea actually is, at least right now. And that comes down to what iOS is really good at and what macOS is really good at. iOS is really good at viewing content. It's really good at seeing things quickly and replying to emails and getting really simple tasks done really quickly, especially when you're on the go, when you're not home and you don't have something like a computer. macOS is pretty much good at quite the opposite. You can do things pretty quickly, like reply to text, like that functionality is there. You can reply to emails really quickly because it's still a computer. But macOS is much more suited for creating than I think it is viewing. For example, if I ever want to read a really long article or PDF, I like reading it on my iPad because it's like a book. You can read it, you can take it with you, you can pick up where you left off really easily because this is really good at viewing. And the iPhone is in the same boat. It's really good at viewing content. It's also why I love watching things like YouTube videos on my iPad. There's something about being able to just take this wherever you want that's more portable than a laptop that I enjoy viewing content on. But whenever I want to make content, you can sort of do it on iOS, and there's a few apps that are okay. Affinity Photo, iMovie works okay, Adobe Rush CC is actually pretty good from what I've heard. But if you want to do anything serious, multiple layers of video, really intense photo editing, something like Photoshop, there is an app coming to the iPad soon. I'm going to be interested to see how that plays out. But most of the apps you want are on the Mac. Because right now, in fall of 2018, it's really easy to create and really efficient to create on the Mac. And it's really fun and easy to view on your iPhone or iPad. And those are two very different things. And for Apple to market the iPad Pro, and for reviewers like myself to even compare the iPad Pro to a computer, so much of using this iPad Pro, you're going to think of one word: compromise. For some reason, it's taken me 3 years to finally come up with that reasoning as to why I enjoy using my iMac so much more to create, why I like editing on my MacBook Pro, why I like doing complex tasks on a computer rather than an iPhone or an iPad. If I'm ever using something for an extended period of time, if I'm ever going to be browsing the web for a long period of time, I'm always going on my computer because Safari is so much more powerful. Chrome is so much more powerful on a computer than it is on an iPhone or an iPad. Plus, generally, you have a bigger screen, which is a lot easier for me to work with. I have tons more space. This has amazing potential. But you need pro apps on here, and you need some really creative way to make creative work easier on the iPad. And I think the number one place to start is with a special version of OS, not macOS and not iOS. Maybe tvOS, tabletOS, or iPadOS that is optimized in every way, shape, and form for an 11-inch or a 12.9-inch display. I think iOS on the iPhone is perfect. Nobody, I don't think, wants to do a ton of really intense creative work on their iPhone. I love doing intense creative work on my iMac or even my MacBook Pro. And I want to love it on the iPad Pro. I want to do it on the iPad Pro, but the tools just aren't there yet. iOS 12 isn't there yet. But I want it to be, and I challenge Apple to work on a solution here. I'm not a software designer, so I can't really mock up what I want. But I can say that if Apple found a way to make editing and doing true high professional work on the iPad easy, I would be down to try it. But it's taken them 3 years to get here, make the best tablet ever, make the best iPad ever, and it continues to be just that to me. The best iPad and the best tablet. But it's not a computer replacement for me, and I don't think it's going to be a computer replacement for most people. I think most people, if they only listened to Apple and only bought the iPad Pro to do everything that they would ever need to do on a computer, it would work for some people. I think a small percentage of people would be really happy with the iPad in its current state. But I don't think the majority of people would buy an iPad Pro, even with the expensive keyboard case, even with the Apple Pencil 2, and say, yes, it's everything I ever wanted in its current state. There's no limitations. It's exactly what I need. Word on the street is that iOS 13 could make things better, that it could totally revamp how the iPad works. But until then, you've got a really powerful and capable device that's being held back by software, which is the problem that I really never thought Apple was going to have. All right, guys, that's all for this video. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. Are you going to be picking one of these iPads up? Can it replace your computer? Like, this is my side of the story. I want to hear your side of the story as well. So let me know down below, and dislike if you didn't enjoy the video too. I've been Sam. Subscribe for more. I'll catch you guys in my next video.